Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin Sokoloff, alongside my co-host and Chuck Norris wannabe, Ron Ward. And today we have a very special guest joining us.
That's right, Kristin. We're excited to sit down with former executive producer, screenwriter, and director Tom Blomquist. Tom has produced iconic shows like Walker, Texas Ranger, The A-Team, and many more. On top of his incredible career in television, he's an accomplished author of 3 books, with his latest release titled Poster Boys. And I am almost finished with that, Tom, I promise.
That's amazing. This is going to be good, folks. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. And Ron, when you only read every other word, it goes faster. So just move it along.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
That's one way to do it. Absolutely. Tom, we have a great community, and they contribute to the podcast by way of questions. And so some of those questions that they posed, we're going to be asking you today. First, breaking into the business. How did you first break into the television industry, and what leadership skills helped you move from writing to executive producing?
Wow, that's a load there. You guys can take
I know, right off the bat.
So anyway, I started in the 70s, and because I am an old guy, and in my journey was that I was recruited. I majored in radio television at Southern Illinois University, and I thought I wanted to be a TV commercial producer. And so I sent letters to all these ad agencies all around the world saying, here's who I am, here's where I'm going to school, here's what I'm studying. I know you recruit guys. What do I have to do to be one of them? And I started that my sophomore year of college, by the way, knowing that when I graduated, I really wanted to get a job. And my classmates were mostly going into television stations as producer directors or news people and that kind of thing. So a couple of people wrote me back, and one guy said, let's stay in touch. So I thought, wow, okay, I've scored. So I, for 3 years, corresponded with him by snail mail and occasional phone calls. And as I was entering my senior year, he called me at school and said, well, I have good news and bad news. He said, the bad news is I'm retiring in 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, well, great. There's my opportunity. For 3 years I've been working this guy and now nothing. Yeah. And he said, but the good news is I've given your file to my successor, Dwayne Bogey, and so you should contact him. And I thought, wait a minute, I have a file? There's a file with my name on it? So that's something. Then, as a kid, I understood. And so I contacted Mr. Bogey, and he was senior vice president at the agency and head of the Hallmark greeting cards account and the executive producer of the Hallmark Hall of Fame movie series on NBC at the time. And so I contacted his office, and his secretary, Kathy Lonergan, said, oh, yes, Mr. Bogey is expecting to hear from you. Why don't you come see us when the office was in Chicago, that particular office. And so I went and saw him when I was home for Christmas and had an interview and met all these ad agency guys, and they made me an offer. And nobody could figure out how I pulled that one out of a hat, but I did.
Oh, my gosh.
And I wound up as his kind of protege to learn how to be a producer. Long story short, I did that for a couple of years, traveled around the world as his assistant, learning how to be a producer. But in that, part of my job duties was to read plays and books and scripts that were submitted for Hallmark. We did 4 or 5 of those a year, and we'd get 500 submissions.
Wow.
And I thought, I want to be the guy writing these things. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't do it in Chicago. I had to do it in LA, where the center of the universe for entertainment is. And so I quit my job and went out to Los Angeles, drove my Pinto with the exploding gas tank.
You really had a Pinto? That's real?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
nice.
risked my life driving to LA. But anyway, ultimately I wound up getting a job from somebody else that responded to one of my letters that I wrote to those people. And that was Grant Tinker, former president of NBC and Mary Tyler Moore's husband, who ran MGM Productions. And I got a job there as a kind of a junior executive, doing the same thing, developing pilots and movies and things. And while I was in LA, I took advantage of that and befriended, or writers befriended me, and I learned from them and got in a writing workshop. And 10 years later, I was a professional writer, but that's what I did.
Wow. That's incredibly interesting. There's a few themes that stand out to me from your story there. And one of them is you took your career and what you wanted to do. One, you had a clear understanding of what you wanted your path to be. And then you took the bull by the horns. And instead of waiting until you graduated and assuming that something was going to land in your lap, you made sure to really reach out. I mean, you were basically pen pals with people for 3 years. That's how you have a file on you somewhere that you're not even employed by, right? Like, that's very impressive.
Well,
and so many
thank
people
you.
Could learn from that today.
Well, to the extent that it's useful for somebody. Here's a story for you. I went through all my money. I had literally no money, and I went and applied for food stamps. And
wow.
So I go to the food stamp office, and there's this little man there, the clerk, and he was just this little kind of ferret of a guy with a bad toupee kind of character.
It's a good description. I can tell you're a writer.
Yeah, he really was. And I'll never forget, I told the story to students when I taught college. The guy said, well, we don't have any money, and, are you looking for work? I said, well, yes, I am. I want to be a writer. He went, well, that's never going to happen.
Oh, wow.
I said, no. And I'm at my lowest point in my life, emotionally, intellectually, energy. I mean, I was just ready to fling myself off a freeway overpass, and this guy says, well, that's never going to happen. I said, well, yeah, I'm going to be a writer. And I worked on Hallmark. And he said, no, that's never going to happen. I said, what do you mean? He said, I wanted to be a writer, and it didn't happen for me, and it's never going to happen for you.
Oh my gosh.
Now, this is the guy at the food stamp office. So I have already gone, and anybody that's ever been on welfare or everything knows what you feel like. Mm-hmm. Unless you're scamming the system, but then you probably feel great. But when you're actually at that low tide, and this little man, and I thought in that instant, I'm never going to be this little man ever, and I'll show him. And that fed me a long time, motivation wise, because this awful human being was trying to crush me to his level, and just because it didn't work for him, it couldn't possibly work for me. So it did work for me. It took a while, but it worked for me.
Good for you to take that and then harness it towards making it happen. Have that
thank you.
Stick in your craw. Yeah, not a lot of people do that. That's fantastic. Ron's chomping at the bit here.
Persistence pays. I do tell people, start on the path. It'll unfold as you go. And that sounds like it. That happened for you, Tom.
The analogy I always told my students is that in the entertainment industry, anyway, you jump in the river and it takes you where it wants to take you. And maybe you can, grab a branch by the shore and pull yourself onto otherwise it'll take you where it wants to take you. And that's truly my experience.
Very interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
So let's get to one item I know everyone wants to talk about. You've been on produced some iconic shows, Walker, Texas Ranger, The A-Team. And I know that Tom has worked on many more high-level stuff, but people love popularity. You know that, Tom. So in working on shows like that, what leadership challenges come with managing such a large-scale, high-profile production? And, we love stories. We love to spill the tea. So feel your liberty.
You want me to tell you where the bodies are all buried?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's see. How can I describe this? first of all, the old cliche, show business, it's part show and part business.
Mm.
A lot of people forget that. Certainly people watching, consuming this stuff have no reason to think that. But when you're actually making these products, movies or TV shows, it is creative and it's art, or it's business, or a mixture of the two. And you don't always get to pick which has the heavier thing. Now, it may not be the case in an insurance company or if you're making widgets in a factory, but it is the case in show business. So you have to know that and respect it when you go in, meaning you don't get to always control the universe. Even everybody reports to somebody, and it's always somebody else's money. Even Steven Spielberg answers to somebody. It's somebody else's money, and he has to fight it out. They say, well, you're over budget. You can't shoot that thing you want to add. And he has to fight it out with them because it's their money. And they have to figure out what is the cost benefit ratio and all those standard business kind of things. So when I was coming up, you do, in my case, I started as a freelance writer, and I would go into these meetings with the people that were on staff, the story editors and producers and executive producers, and they all have different levels of responsibility. And then I would walk away thinking, boy, that was the worst experience of my life. These people are awful. And I would file that away. Boy, if I'm ever in charge, I'm not going to treat people like that. Then you get on staff and you're a staff writer or a story editor, and you're now in these creative sessions where you're learning up close and personal how it is that they're acting on the mandates being dropped on them. The executive producer is the lightning rod for all the problems, all the bull, all the everything from the network and the studio and other things that are happening on the show. So I would see these people as high-level producers responding to things, acting out, trying to solve problems on the fly with me in the room. So you get there, as your junior staff person, like a story editor, and you're part of it, but you're respectfully observing how it's being handled. And I worked for some of the greatest showrunners, we call them, in TV history, and I worked for some of the worst people that never should have been allowed on the studio lot, and everybody in between. Yeah. So if you're smart, if you're serious about doing this at a professional level, then you have to pay attention. So I know it applies to any business that your listeners and viewers are a part of or want to be a part of, is that, the people that are in charge, let's assume they're competent and they have the best of intentions. Yeah. They're still responding to outside forces that you don't understand. And that was the first thing that I learned, which is, what's this person's deal? What are they going through and why are they acting like this? Why are they making these judgments? This makes no sense to me. And your job is to try to figure it out as you're coming up. So when you're in charge and those things are now dropping on you like an anvil on your head, you make responsible choices, and you are guiding your people that are now the junior people around you into why you're doing certain things and trying to instruct them. Like, someday when you're in charge, don't make this mistake.
Yeah.
Look what just happened to us. Look at the mistake I just made. Don't do that. Make different decisions. Does that make sense?
It does. We talk about that a lot, just with our leadership careers, and how something like, in my experience, would come down from corporate, and maybe I didn't even agree with it, but I'm the one that has to relay the message and then get my team on board.
Yeah.
And it, to your point, I would give them, look, I can see, I give them 5 minutes to gripe and groan. And then it's like, okay, I'm with you. Like, some of this I don't agree with, but it's here and we need to do it. And so here's how we're going to handle it. Yeah. I know, Ron, you experienced that as well.
I did with the government. We had to be careful on the moaning and complaining, though you would have someone send it to headquarters. So
Oh,
I
geez.
usually had to use words like, look, this is the way it is. Get over it. Let's move on. But I like your idea, Kristin.
Oh, it only works some places, it sounds
Yeah.
like. Okay, I've
So-
got another
Oh, okay.
question. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say that in terms of getting started in the business, the paths are different, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Ultimately, people have to decide if somebody's watching this right now or listening, and I want to make movies. You have to decide. Actually, it's true of any career. Are you a seat filler, or are you a contender? I told my college students that, and I talk to people all the time that want to be writers, especially. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay, are you a seat filler of a person, or are you a contender? Because if you're going to be a seat filler, that's a very different role in life. There's plenty of them, no judgments. People have a job, they get the paycheck, they go home, they don't aspire to run the operation, they just don't want to get fired, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a contender, meaning you want to go for the brass ring, you want to be in charge, that's a whole nother mindset. And I know it applies to any industry, but it's very true in entertainment that, okay, you want to be a contender, now you need to build your body armor for the body blows that are coming your way. It's not for everybody. The entertainment industry is this is not a recruiting effort to please come and be in the entertainment industry, because it's not for everybody.
Right.
The hours are terrible. I worked 80 to 100 hours a week for 30 years. That's why I look like this. I'm only 25 years old, and look at this.
That's amazing.
Look at my hair. Anyway, but it's really not for everybody. Every industry is not for everybody, and
Right.
And you need to have your eyes open, and you need to respect what you don't know.
Right.
And if you don't aspire to truly get the answers to all of that, then you really need to modify your plan, your expectations. Just because you like movies,
Yeah.
just because your Uncle Harold, produced commercials 50 years ago, doesn't mean you're wired for this.
Yeah, even though the government gets a bad rap, when I was a U.S. probation officer, you never worked 8 hours a day. It was a lot more than that. And
Yes.
People don't realize that going in. But we got about 25 more questions. So,
All right.
All right. So we have another listener submission. This is personal, so you do not need to provide specific details.
Yes,
this
you
is
do.
One of the Ron wants. I don't like to be tacky, so but they did ask, were you paid as much as the talent, and do you receive residuals from the shows you produced?
Okay, well, it's not that personal. It's almost, I don't want to say public record, but
Yeah.
when you say the talent, I assume they were asking about the stars of the show.
Yeah, actors.
So there is an echelon of showrunners, Dick Wolf, those kind of people that make as much money as the stars. But we mere mortals, the people grinding out shows, on all the networks and wherever, don't make anything like. I mean, we're talking about people that are making, $250,000, $500,000 a week.
Wow.
The stars of some of these shows, and they don't pay producers and writers that much unless they are superstars. That's not to say the money's not great. It can be phenomenal, but it's their face on the screen.
Yeah.
And somebody's investing in that face. They can't easily change that face out for another face like that. Soap operas they do sometimes, but in primetime television, we'll call it, or in movies, there's a box office appeal to them, the marketing appeal. There's their clickbait. A lot of these people have tons of followers that fuels the ratings. So they don't pay any of the people that make the shows, most of the people that make the shows, that kind of money. Having said that, you go into it knowing that. And
Yeah.
it's a weird compromise, because if I go on a show and I'm in charge of the show, I'm the executive producer, and then you've got 2 or 3 stars of the show, and they're making more money than I am, but I'm technically their supervisor, their boss,
Yeah, that is an interesting dynamic.
and they know it.
Yeah.
And so the job is to not just do your job, write great scripts, direct the thing, in a positive direction, and have ratings result. But your job is to form a partnership of sorts, a respect, mutual respect with the artists, because and everybody does this differently. When I'm directing things, I'm like an actor's director. I so respect what they do, because it's not normal what
Right.
actors do. It's not human, that they can become another human being,
Yeah.
literally become someone else right in front of you. And so you respect that. What does it take for them to go through that? The emotional toll. It's not easy. And then the hours they're putting in, because it's one thing to be working 12 hours. It's something else to be working 12 hours and have your face,
Oh, yeah.
right here, and
Yeah.
it's the self-awareness, the concerns, the paranoia, the whatever, are very real. So the key is to, I have found anyway, is to form a dialogue with them. I worked on one show. I came onto one show where several showrunners before me had not succeeded, and they were let go. These were legendary guys that know how to do it, and have resumes that anybody would envy. And I had to analyze, well, why didn't it work with them? They've been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
And looked at their work and examined the situation. And what I realized was they came in like they had created the show, and they were in charge of everything, and they had not respected the needs, very real needs and expectations of the star of the show.
Yeah.
And there were some cast dynamics that were not positive going on between the stars, the multiple people on the show. And that all had to be addressed and ironed out. And it's like, in any management thing, who's working for me, who's working with me, who are, and how, what is their problem? I wrote a textbook once, co-wrote a college textbook on film directing. And our approach was that a film director is not just a dictator, and he's in charge of everything.
Yeah.
You're like a committee chair, and other people on the committee that you're working with and guiding the cinematography, that department, the actors, the editors, the other writers, or whatever. There's like different departments on a budget of a film or a TV show, and so what are their problems? What are they up against every day to get their job done?
Yeah.
And how do you facilitate that as genially and as efficiently as you can? Sometimes you can't, and it's got to be pulling teeth, with pliers. But other times it can be really fun and great to collaborate with them, because they know presumably more about what their craft skill is than you do.
Right.
So I know what I like, but I'm not a cinematographer. So I enjoy the composer. I love music. I was a drummer as a kid, and I love film music, and I've learned to talk in the language that a composer understands when you're looking at a rough cut, and you're trying to describe the kind of music you hear in your head that you think would be the most effective. It's fun, but it's fun if you respect what they do,
Right.
and what they need, so they don't spend a lot of time composing something that then you reject later.
Yeah. It sounds like there's an element of humility for sure. Like understanding you don't know everything about every aspect of it, and understanding some
Well, that's
They're
how I work. Trust me
right.
when I say there are plenty of producers and directors for whom that is not accurate.
Right. I
Yeah,
can
we
imagine.
see the clips for sure.
A
Hey,
lot of
Tom,
ego.
I think you're still not getting to your net worth is what we're trying. I'm kidding.
No, the residuals.
The
Actually, we
big,
still
I
need
was
the
going to
answer on that.
say
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
question was presented to me personally, and they want to know. And let me tell you why. We were discussing, like, we hear like people back in the day, John Denver on Gilligan's Island, these people die broke, and the network continues to make money in syndication or whatever. Are people wiser? And, do you get those residuals?
Okay. So residuals are payments, reuse payments, they call them, for work that you've done. There were no residuals up until the late 60s, mid 60s. And that was where the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild and the Directors Guild kind of, forced the issue and created a residual concept. And the reason that exists, by the way, is because entertainment television and film are freelance industries. So somebody works on a project. It's like, okay, well, the four of us are going to make a movie. Or the three of us, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's three of us. Three of us are
You counted both of my personalities. Go ahead, Tom.
well, I did. Yeah, thank you. So that you need a talent base that is available, that's trained and ready to go anytime you have a project. And the way you keep that talent base alive is they get paid for the work that they do, and then if it's reused and money flows to the studio, then they're entitled to a very small portion of that. And it's not that much, which I'll explain in a minute. But that's how you keep a freelance talent pool alive. And so they didn't have that before. So all those early shows, they may not have had any residuals. And you hear that they were broke because that was before residuals came in. Now, residuals are different if it's a broadcast network like NBC or ABC. It's a different structure than if it's a syndicated show. You make it independently, and the different TV stations buy it and air it. And it's different still from now streaming, which is a completely different animal that has overturned the whole industry. So, because a streaming thing is not based on what we call appointment television, where I'm going to watch my show on Saturday night at 9 p.m. on ABC, like we used to. Now, most people don't have appointment television. They DVR it, or they just wait. They binge watch their stuff on Hulu or whatever. And so when they make stuff for those venues, those platforms, they know they're not just going to run it once and then they'll run it a second time. It's running constantly for years. And so all the unions, all the guilds have suffered from that, because you make a project once, you get paid the same money you would have made at CBS, but now they're running it infinitely forever, and not like you're getting all these extra paychecks that help keep you alive. So in the old days, you'd work on a TV series, and then in the summer there'd be summer reruns, and a network run of a second use or a third use or a fourth use paid really well under that formula. But the industry has changed, and the studios have all fought to get rid of that, and it's hurt a lot of people. Residuals also diminish. So if it paid, it might have paid, let's say, 60% of or 80% of your original fee the first time, then it's down to 40%. I get residual checks for 50 cents literally from time to time, because it diminishes over time.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know what will happen to that. It has to be resolved. They're still fighting it out all the time, the unions and the studios, because the studios, of course, don't want to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Their idea is, well, we paid you once, that's good enough. But in order to be in the business and be available for these projects that come up, how do you can't wait tables, always, to support a
Yeah.
family. And residuals kept a lot of people alive for a long time.
Very interesting.
All right. As I said, we have a lot of questions, so let's move on. Tom, I would kind of like to hear, let's talk about team dynamics. TV shows, of course, rely, as all businesses, heavily on collaboration. You got directors, actors, crew, and many more players that we're not aware of. But when you set that initial meeting, like, do you research and do you talk to other executive producers? Do you say, like, oh, this particular star is hard to deal with? Like, did you do prep work? And then do you do an initial meeting with everyone, or how do you do that? So how do you start out of the gate strong is what I'm asking.
Well, it depends. If you're starting like with the pilot, everybody meets for the first time and you figure out how you're all going to work together. My particular, and I've worked on some pilots that then didn't become series, or I went on to another project. My karma, has always been, I'm not the first guy they hire. After they go through the first or second or third guy, I'm the one that, or back when I was doing this for a living, I'd be the guy they would call, and it'd be kind of the trauma surgeon. It's not working. We don't know why it's not working. Let's call Tom.
You're the cleanup guy.
Yeah. and it's a specialty.
Fixer.
It's a fixer, but it is a trauma surgeon thing. They bring in the patient. The patient's bleeding all over, and you have to evaluate quickly, what's wrong, and you stop the bleeding and as best you can in the right order, save the patient. And so when you come on somebody else's show and it's not working, it could be anything. It could be creative problems. It could be production issues with who's actually making the shows physically. It could be cast problems. It could be, network meddling, which happens. So just because you're in management doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And I've worked with some of the best network executives you can imagine, who are supportive and intuitive and creative and all that. And then I've worked with some that were complete morons, and how they ever, just because they got a Harvard MBA doesn't mean anything. And so, you figure out who's who and what's what, and then you have to just make it work. And I go back to the thing about understanding what is their job, what are they up against? And what I mean by that, well, you've got a budget, and let's say the production designer who has to create the sets and decorate sets and whatever. You've got a finite amount of money in the budget for their job for every episode of a TV show. And then the script comes out and it's way more ambitious than what their typical budget, what we call a pattern budget, week to week, allows them. So they come to you, oh my God, we're never going to do this. We don't have enough money. And you try to figure out, well, can we get them more money? Do we have to change the script expectations? Are they overestimating what it is they need to do? And can they find a way to cut costs for what they're up against? And so you go through all of those things with all of those people, including the actors, especially the actors. Who are they? And yes, you do check them out. You do get report cards. I've made many phone calls about all the key personnel. Hey, I'm going to be working with Kristin on this next thing, and I see on her resume that you guys did work together. What am I up against? Oh, she's great. You'll love her. She'll do anything. She's terrific. Very professional.
Strong personality. Wants to control things.
As opposed to Ron.
I was going to issue a warning there.
As opposed to Ron, who poison. And you might want to write him out of your show as quickly as possible. Got it. Thank you.
She's been trying, Tom, but I keep hanging around.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that's that in the real world. I field those calls even now, and I taught at a university for a bunch of years, And I get calls from people saying, hey, they used you as a reference, and what do you think? I said, well, she was a fabulous student, and I really liked her a lot, and I've been following her career, and I think she's gonna get there. She may be running her. In fact, what happened last year, 2 years ago, with one of my favorite students, the guy called me, and I said, she's going to be running your company in a couple of years.
Wow.
And I went, no, seriously, she's going to be running your company. And she started as an assistant, and she's now senior vice president in charge of production for this guy's company.
You nailed it.
But you can smell that on them. You just know.
Yeah.
Some people just have it, and other people, they need a little more time on the tree to ripen, before
Yeah.
the fruit. And so anyway, that's how that is.
You're up, Kristin.
All right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay. We talk a lot about this leadership in crisis. And you touched on it a bit actually just now when you're coming in, as Ron said, with the fixer, and I said the cleanup guy, right? And that's a compliment, I'd say it, because people know that you can get the job done and make it something. But okay, so every production hits roadblocks. I can only imagine. I'm sure you have many stories. Can you share a time when things went off track, and then how leadership played a role in keeping the team moving forward?
Okay, sure. As a showrunner.
What is a showrunner? Just for those of us who...
Executive producer,
okay,
lodge for everything.
Okay.
And that's
You're not the guy getting coffee. I think runner, and I'm like, is that the one running around getting...
No, you're a show runner.
You're running the show. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. But you're right. A runner sounds very different. Yeah. On more than one occasion, trying to get the show from here to here smoothly, efficiently, positively, there would be obstacles, often with cast, meaning they don't understand clearly why this is happening, and you need to call in the heavy artillery, which would mean me having a good relationship, positive, with my person at the network, the vice president of current programming, to say, I need you.
Yeah.
The good ones will say, I'll stay out of your way, I'll stay out of your face, but call me when you need me. I know what you're up against, so call me if you need me. So you'd use that sparingly, but that's heavy ammunition. And on one occasion, I was on a show in a distant location in another city, and there were some issues. I felt them coming up. You could just feel it. On the set, there's politics and whatever. Yeah. And you need to get the star of the show singing from the same hymnal as you, and I called the vice president of current programming and said, I think this would be a really good time for you to make a surprise visit. You haven't been here in a while. The stars need to feel loved, and sometimes I'm not enough. I'm working every day, and we're making things happen. But boy, to have the head person fly in, take her to dinner, and kind of kiss them on the lips and hug them, make them from the network, really can get a lot of positive results. And I remember on one occasion, the executive came in, and woman executive, wonderful person, a great intuitive executive, and hey, surprise! I'm going to be coming in, and flew down in the network private jet, and took the star and me to dinner, and it was just love and just such support, and that created a course correction. I was able to see, then report back to her later that's what was needed. It was just. Sometimes people just need an attaboy,
Yes.
And this was the ultimate attaboy. The top person at the network was going to fly in just to say, I love you, and your show is great, and you guys are doing a great job, and spend a lot of money on a lavish dinner. And then the actor, they're making a fortune, and they're the star of a show and have all this repute. But the fact is, everybody just needs a little pat on the head once in a while from
Right.
somebody that matters, whether it's a parent to a child or a star of a TV show from an executive. And so that was one circumstance. There was another where I had replaced an executive producer on a different show, also on a distant location. And there were a lot of problems, all kinds of HR type issues with this guy, and creative issues, and the network and the studio were just not happy.
Yeah.
And I knew the studio executive and from a different show, and he said, maybe Tom is the guy. So we met and talked about it. I didn't want to do it. He said, no, I think it would be great, And so I took the job, had to kind of reconceive what the show was, the metabolism of the show. Why wasn't it working? How can we make it better? He and I then flew to New York to the network and did a kind of a big dog and pony pitch session. Here's the show you guys don't like, and why. And here's the show we think we can do, and why. And they said, yeah, that'd be great. But when I got to the set, the line producer, the production producer, who's the nuts and bolts, signs time cards, deals directly with crew issues. That's that department head. They're not creatives; they're production. It's nuts and bolts. It's a construction foreman on a job site. That is that guy. They didn't design the building. They're not architects, but they have to supervise the guys driving the nails. That's what those guys. And the good ones are invaluable. And this one was resisting because the scripts were more ambitious, as approved.
Okay.
And it were necessary. And he was kind of used to dealing with my lunkhead, I'll call him, predecessor, and it was very suspicious. Like, well, this guy was a jerk. Blomquist is probably a jerk.
Right.
And it took a while. We didn't have a lot of time, but it took a while for me to wear that down.
Yeah.
And get him on board, because in management terms, you want everybody on the same train going to the same station.
Right.
That's management 101. Everybody's got to be on the same train. If somebody's on the wrong train, that doesn't work. If they want to get off at a different station, that doesn't work. And so it was contentious between he and I for a while. But I loved the guy, and we became very, very close friends right up until his death. He did a bunch of hit series after that, and we tried to work together. We tried to find projects to do together. He recommended me for a couple of shows that I wound up not being hired for, but I loved this guy. But it took a real concerted effort on my part to sell myself to him, even though he was my subordinate, technically. He was my predecessor there. I inherited him and the way he did business and the way the crew he had hired. And I knew he had all kinds of great credits. This guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
It's that he had reason to be suspicious of another executive producer because the previous one was not a good experience for him.
And that's what toxic leadership, it doesn't only poison the existing batch or the current team, is then the next leader that comes in is having to clean up from that as well. We talk a lot about bad leaders.
And I have one of Ron's favorite stories. I'll tell this one, Ron. So I was working on a show, Walker, Texas Ranger, your favorite, Kristin. And God forgive you, by the way, but it's okay. But this is one of these circumstances that have to be solved. My mandate from the network in that case was get the ratings up. We've got Chuck Norris. He's a big movie star. He's an American icon. He's, the best in his sport that has ever lived, all of that, and so, but the show's not performing at the level that we think it should be. And I said, well, we can do something about that. But, action sequences cost a lot of money, and this show needs more action. People they're expecting a Chuck Norris movie, not a Chuck Norris cheap imitation. And they said, we'll tell you when to stop. First of all, nobody's ever going to tell me ever again, because we spent big time on huge action sequences, and it was really cool. And one day, our location manager, who her job is to read the scripts and then find locations that would be suitable for all the different scenes, and then take people to them, the director and the producing team, and try to pick the right ones. She came and said, "Do you want to blow up a whole neighborhood?" And I went, "Sure." What are you talking about? And we were shooting in Dallas, Texas, and she said, DFW Airport is expanding their runways. And I just found out they've been bulldozing the subdivision right next to them to expand the runways. And she said, and there's like one neighborhood left. We can blow it up. And I said, sure. Now, we didn't even have a script. And the head of production at CBS said, when I said, we're going to do this, we can't do that. That's ridiculous. All the people say, no.
Mm-hmm.
My supervisor at the network said, yeah, if you can make it work, oh, awesome. Because that's the kind of stuff that big movies, Die Hard or whatever would do.
Yeah.
Not a TV show series. And so Janice, the location manager, who went on to become the film liaison for the state of Texas for all productions, Janice Berkland, wonderful, talented person. I said, well, find out how we do this. So they said, you can destroy this neighborhood for free as long as you cart the rubble away.
Oh, for free too. Hey.
So we didn't even have a script. All we had was we needed to blow this. It was like 6 luxury homes. These are homes that would go for.
Oh, they were nice ones?
Beautiful homes.
Oh my gosh.
These would go for $1.5 million in almost any neighborhood. And they had already just literally bulldozed the entire thing.
Oh my gosh.
And this is on YouTube. If you look for, it's called Blown Apart. Walker Texas Ranger Blown Apart. You'll see what we did.
Anyway, see that.
So we figured out it'll be some kind of a mad bomber, serial bomber, type of story. And we got a shot of Chuck Norris diving through a window and running to camera as this house blows up behind him. And then you cut back and it's one house after another, after another, after another, literally blowing the toothpicks.
So
and
cool.
So we set it up. I can't remember, we had no script. We just got permission to blow up this neighborhood. And it was the coolest thing. I mean, I was like a 10-year-old boy putting on my Walker Texas Ranger hat. We got to, they had we brought in a top special effects team that did a lot of our big pyrotechnic stuff from LA. And they put, I think, 6 50-gallon oil drums full of gasoline in each house with primer cord and all that. They scored the rafters and all the attics so the place would, make a cool thing. Houses are empty, of course. And so we were a couple 100 yards away behind a blast shield. And you could, so there's Chuck Norris comes diving out a window and he's running to the camera and the house literally just disintegrates behind him, which you can see on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
Unbelievable. And he's just like booking like crazy. And he runs all the way to the blast shield. I went, geez, Chuck, you were really moving. He went, are you kidding me? Man, there's splitters and shingles hit me. Oh my God, it was great. He wanted to do it again.
Oh, that's funny.
And he got such a kick out of it. And there's another YouTube video that shows what the stunt team did. Eric Norris, Chuck's son, was our second unit action director. And Eric and his guys figured out, well, if Chuck running to the camera in one shot, but you're only going to blow these houses up once. So you needed other angles of him in front of kind of other houses. So they got his stunt double, who looked just like him, running across, in front of a different house at the same time. So all of this is happening. And was very intricate
Wow,
in the
cool.
logistics of how they had to figure this out. And the concussion blast from 6 houses blowing up was unbelievable. And the helicopter shots and everything, we had to get FAA approval.
Oh,
You can
wow.
imagine being an airline pilot and flying, landing at DFW and houses are blowing up. They had to tell people,
Yeah.
they had to reroute.
Those people got a show that were up
They
there.
did. And they
Oh
had to
my
reroute
gosh.
planes, for safety, and also say, Chuck Norris is making a movie down there, folks, on your
Oh,
right-hand side.
cool.
And it looked like Dresden after the World War II bombing raids with the black clouds of smoke. It was
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
But then we had to figure out, well, what is the script? And for the production challenge,
I
you
love
have to
it.
wrestle
Reverse
with
engineering.
reverse engineering, exactly. And so we had to, first you have to, as a manager, you have to get the network support, and they're going to pay the money for something on faith that you're going to then backfill an actual episode that works. And then Terry Nelson, one of our writers, had an idea. We said, well, what are you going to do about a serial killer? And he came up with a really good story, and he wrote the script. And then subsequently, we went ahead and shot everything, including being in a house with the mad bomber strapped with all the explosives on him, and Chuck karate's this guy, and then dives out the window to match the footage that we had already
Perfect.
shot. And it was a very successful episode, and it was a huge kind of attention getter. And again, as a manager, if your task is to improve the ratings, if your task is to improve the product, then you've got to get people we used to say, because we were on Saturday nights, we want people talking about what Walker did at the water cooler on Monday morning.
Yes.
That was our kind of mental image. What can we give them this week that they haven't seen before? They'll go, Mike, did you see what they did on that? We went from number 40 in the ratings to number 10
Oh, really?
in almost as many weeks. In other words, it was
Wow.
by just feeding. It's like watering a dying plant. If you water it properly, maybe put some coffee grounds on the soil, whatever, fertilizer, and you watch it come back. And that was literally what that was, which was same guy, mostly the same crew. Few had to be changed out, but different writers and a different mindset about what it was we were doing. We weren't doing a TV show anymore. We were doing Chuck Norris movies. And it was important for me to feel that. And more importantly, I wanted Chuck to feel that, because he had done movies for 18 or 20 years and had every reason to expect a similar kind of experience.
Right.
And, I'm not sure he was getting that experience previously. There were budget constraints, all kinds of constraints, but managerially, that's kind of how that one was approached. And again, it's not brain surgery. It doesn't, a lot of people can do this. It just, you have to stop and think it through and have a plan and motivate everybody to all get on that same train,
Right. That's an amazing story. I love that.
Yeah,
And I will be. That's going to be the promo for this episode. I'm going to go find that scene and find you and then put you talking about it together. While you were talking, I'm like visualizing what I'm going to do for the promo.
Well, it was, thank you. And honestly, It was really cool. And Terry did a great job with that script. And once everybody on the crew said, you're going to what? We're going to what? Everybody became 10-year-olds again. It's like the ultimate fun.
Yes, I
couldn't
love
believe we were doing this, and a bunch of other things, not unlike that subsequently. But this really, as a manager, helped me shift people into the right mindset that they deserve to be in, and that the network needed them to be in, and I certainly needed them to be in, and Chuck Norris, he was on the inside of this, so you can't expect him to have that objectivity. In my any predecessors that were on the show, when you're in it, you're in it. You don't always see it. When you come in from the outside, you go, oh, wait a minute. What if we
Yes.
painted the room blue? And, oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
And that's all.
You have to fuel the fire, no pun intended.
Exactly. Thank you.
So, for sake of time, Kristin, why don't you? One of the big questions I got from people is about the 80s and 90s eras, and then Tom, we want to transition into your books and talk about you as an author. So, Kristin, will you jump to that? It's one of my favorite questions as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so comparing the era of the 80s and 90s to today's streaming platforms, do you think that storytelling and TV dramas have improved or declined?
It's a couple of tiers. On a production level, they have certainly improved. We used to shoot our shows in 7 days, 7 shooting days. That subsequently expanded. Some shows were at 8 days. X-Files came out. It was on around the same time we were, like when I was doing Walker, and they were shooting in 10 days. That's all just a matter of budget.
Yeah.
Now, they don't. Those were self-contained episodes, so every week you could watch them in any order. There was no really continuing storyline. Now the fashion is to do a series with a through line. It's almost like a soap opera. It continues, and it's very perfect, very nice for streaming.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch a show like Bosch, which is a great show, you can watch 10 of them in a row, and it just never ends, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
If they were self-contained episodes, then you don't need to watch them that way. You could watch them piecemeal. So production-wise, because they're shooting them all together as a continuing story, they can spend more time on certain sequences and spend more attention to detail, more money.
Mm-hmm.
So those parts have gotten better. Where I don't think it's necessarily gotten better is writing-wise. Some shows are great and have unbelievable writers. Well, the network shows the same thing. You look at any of these shows, L.A. Law or Hill Street Blues or whatever show. Great shows, great writing. I defy anybody to tell me that those were not as good as something that's on today. But there have always been lesser shows on network TV, and there are in streaming. I mean, there's some movies and TV series on streaming that are, for me, unwatchable. They're just not very good.
Yeah.
Because the scripts are not very good, and they're shooting deals as opposed to shooting anything that's artistic. But it's always been the case. So production-wise, shows have certainly improved, even on the networks, because of HBO and Netflix and Showtime, putting a lot of money into, instead of we did 26 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger a year. They're doing 10 episodes a year now on a streaming show.
Right.
So we did more than twice as much work in the same amount of time. So, you do the calculation. It's like time is money. They're spending a lot of time making fewer things. So of course they're going to have elements that are costlier and more impressive. Good luck doing 22, which is a standard network order even today, 22 episodes a year, and have them be that good when they're still into 8, 10, maybe 12 shooting days an episode. So it's apples and oranges a little bit.
Yeah, I could see
that.
that.
The good stuff is really good,
Right.
and including on the networks. But what was their budget and what were they up against?
Yeah.
And some shows are kind of Emmy Award magnet type shows. They're trying to be they're important dramas, and I've worked on a couple of those. And then others are more popular entertainment, and they're not. Nobody's pretending you're going to go for a Golden Globe Award or an Emmy Award.
Yeah.
You're there to entertain the masses, and every show does not have the same purpose. Every show is
Right.
not designed for the same reasons.
Right.
And but some of the stuff now is just great. Like I mentioned, Bosch. It's phenomenal show. I was less enamored of the sequel version, but very good show, in part because they really spent money doing it.
On the production.
Hey, Tom, before Kristin transitions into your current world, now I got to pinpoint you here. What's your all-time favorite TV drama? Not one that you've worked on. And what are you currently watching?
He's watching
Well,
Bosch.
Yeah. Good point.
We binged that. We just finished The Lincoln Lawyer. So that's
Oh, okay. Yes. I've seen that.
And it's good. I don't think it's as good as Bosch was, but it's entertaining. I enjoy it. A lot of people love it. My wife and I tend to watch like home improvement shows. I one of my issues with watching our dramas in general is that, not to sound presumptuous, but it's like I can see it coming.
I know, they're so predictable.
We watch something, and I turn to Ann after 5 minutes and go, "Well, Ron did it." What? Watch. Ron did it. Ron's the killer. Ron's the mole. Ron's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you go through the whole thing, and then surprise, it's Ron. And you learn when you've lived in a world of writing these things, which Ron will tell you when we do. Speaking of my novels, my new novel is about that, which is written these. An architect can look at an office building and see past the veneer and immediately start to think about how it's structured and what kind of soil it's in, and the foundation and all of that stuff. You go past that. So, I mean, I wrote over 100 hours of network television in my career and produced 800 hours.
Wow.
So you do that enough, and you start to see patterns. And so it's hard for me as a consumer to ignore the patterns as they're coming my way. When something really grabs me, and I mentioned Bosch because it did, it's like there were a few things I saw coming, but frankly, they just would do twists and turns and ups. It was
that's awesome.
Artfully manipulative based on some great novels. And I didn't always see it coming. And I enjoy that because now I just forget all this stuff that I know or think I know, and just enjoy it as a
yes.
So.
It's interesting. I try to do that with even with true crime. I'll be like, it was the husband. How boring. And then I'll switch the episode. It's like so predictable. So it's like people get sick of that even when it's like real documentary style. All right. So you've transitioned from TV to authoring novels. We've just briefly touched on that, including your latest book, Poster Boys. And rumor has it you did a joint book signing with the Ron Ward when you were both releasing books at the same time.
Yeah. That was my
the highlight. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
I had two books out then. So my second book came out, Devious Thinking. And so I brought both of my first novel was Silent Partners, which is a forensic thriller. And then the other two are revenge comedies. And Ron and I did a book thing together, and that was really fun. The transition part is I never thought I was going to write a novel. I never aspired to that. I did think maybe someday I would write a play. I don't know why. That was just in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And so I was off. A show ended, and I had time till the phone rang again. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go write that play. And I went out to my office. We had a little guest house behind our house and an office out there. And I went out there and I thought I was going to write a play. And what started to come out was my first novel.
How cool.
And I'm not quite sure why, but it did. And so I worked on that for a long time, on and off. Anytime had time in between series, whatever, I would pull up that file and work on it and then shut it down. And so it took a long time, but I got the first one done. And what I discovered is that it's everything I was doing in television and film in one kind of sitting. Meaning, when you write a script, you're suggesting the settings and what happens, and certainly dialogue and plot. But the specific choices for the production designer in designing the sets that's somebody else's specialty.
Mm-hmm.
What the actors are wearing, sometimes it matters. They have to be wearing a suit of armor in this scene, but other times, are they wearing a shirt, a button-down shirt, or are they going to wear a T-shirt? Or the costume designer makes those suggestions all the way through. The music, the everything. So, and how the actors act. You don't tell actors how to act in a script.
Mm.
It's self-evident. Yes, they're angry. They're frustrated. You might suggest that with one word, frustrated. But the actor knows that from the context, and they know how to do that. And they know what the result of that's going to be. I get to be all of those things in a novel. I'm the director. I'm the writer. I'm the actor. I'm all the actors. I'm the costume designer. I'm the composer. If there's music in the background, I get to tell you what the music is, describe the music, and how it affects the person. The ultimate thing that I love about writing novels is that in screenwriting, you can never, ever say what someone's thinking. Kristin walks in the room and she thinks she's been there before. Well, how do we know that?
Yeah.
If she doesn't tell somebody, her girlfriend, which is why they always have buddies in these movies,
Yeah.
Louise, I think I've been here before. If you don't do that,
yeah,
we don't really know what you're thinking.
Right.
In a novel, Kristin enters the room and she thinks now we get to go in her mind, and she feels familiar to her. It's like, it reminds me of a place when she was 16 years old and went to that dance with that cute boy, and all these things start to come out. We get to not only know how she feels and what she's thinking, but we can describe it. You could take 20 pages. James Michener, I remember I read his novel Chesapeake. Okay. The first, I don't know how many, couple hundred pages are about the geological formation of Chesapeake Bay. I mean,
wow.
It has nothing to do with the story, except he wanted you to know about the glaciers and the wildlife and the Indian tribes and and so that's to the extreme. And who could argue with the results? Most people will tell you, you might want to just get the story started faster, Tom. But I love having the freedom, I'll call it, to explore those things. And then you show it to a writer friend and they go, hey, man, get rid of that Chesapeake Bay stuff. It's too much. Oh, yeah, thank you. But it's fun to be able to explore all of those things. And I used to be able to talk to actors about their roles and their backstories and all of that. And now I get to, these are real people and they're chirping in your head.
That is cool.
All the time. They wake me up in the middle of the night. And
do you have a journal by your bed that you write your thoughts in, or that ideas in?
I used to have a notepad there. Now I just get up and I walk in the kitchen. I'm standing there, half naked with a notepad, writing everything down. Because what happens is, and an old writer told me this years and years ago, and I didn't understand what he meant. And then I crossed that threshold. He said, they talk and you type.
Yeah.
You turn on the movie projector in your mind, as if you're literally like you're watching a movie and you write down everything you see and hear. New writers, amateur writers, have trouble doing that. So they spend a lot of time going, let's, what would
Writer's block.
What would Ron say now? Ron would say, Tom, shut up, you're talking too much. And that is, there's always some of that. But the fact is, if you really know what your story is, you've done a complete outline, you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, you just get out of the way and let Ron and Kristin tell you what their characters need, and you write it down and what they're going to say, and then you go back and edit it, change it.
Yeah.
But you getting to that point of turning that, in the old days, movie projector on in your mind and the film turning. When you get to that place as a writer, and you just and how does Meryl Streep do what she does? How do great painters or dancers do? How do great musicians? How does how does Eric Clapton, just go off on a solo and take you, transport the whole audience to a new place? He's not thinking about every note. It's something else. He's channeling something that is moving through his fingers.
Right.
And that's what writers do at a certain level. And that's the fun part for me, is that I get to do it all very selfishly, very maniacally. And it's very, very enjoyable.
And Tom, as a follow up, and then we're gonna conclude here, but we will have the books, everyone, in show notes, and you'll be able to purchase those. And Kristin, I got to tell you, all three of his books are phenomenal. They really are.
Well, thanks.
And I'm almost the poster boys. Tom and I talked in preparation for this podcast, the way he was able to parlay his career and experiences into this creative process. It's really cool and amazing. So I encourage everyone. You got to read his books. They're really creative. I think, Tom, you should be right up there with the big names.
What's fun? Thank you for that. But I would simply say that when I started doing these, my aspiration is, I'm not trying to be John Grisham or Stephen King or one of those guys. I'm just having fun. This is just Tom having fun. I don't play golf. I don't play pickleball. I don't care about any of that. I go in my office, my little cave here, and I write every day, every afternoon. You want to know where I am at from noon till 6 p.m. when my wife knocks on the office door and says, "You're done. It's happy hour." But that really is my routine. And that's what I love to do. And if people enjoy it, that's the gravy. I will say, by the way, that all three books are in Kindle and print. The first one, we did an audiobook as well, Silent Partners. And William Sterling is an actor I know who performed it and did a remarkable job. So I just simply say that if you're an audiobook person, it's on Audible. But he played all the characters, and it was fun directing him in that pursuit. And so that one, a lot of people don't read physical books anymore, but that one is on Audible. And I'm very proud of what he did. And it truly brought the thing to life.
Very cool.
And so I'm happy.
I'm an audiobook gal, so I'll be checking that out for sure.
That's the forensic thriller. And I worked very hard to get the forensic stuff. The hero is a medical student. And I had a couple of doctor friends, vet my medical stuff, carefully. And then had a couple of doctors read it later just to see if they could see it coming, like I was talking about before, or if I surprised them with stuff, and I surprised them. So, yay.
And I just have to say, I love that you went that far to ensure that, because, if somebody in the industry, a physician, let's say, is reading it and there's a term used That is not the proper terminology, or what's actually not used. It ruins it. The rest of the story is ruined because they now see it as hokey because it's not relatable. So the fact that you went and made sure you had multiple people in the industry read that, that's
thank you.
very smart. Yes.
But that is the job, and everybody on some level in the entertainment business that's telling stories should at least hold it up to, litmus test on something. So, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have to say, because I was in banking for 20 years and I would see so many like bank robbery scenes, and I'm like, that's not how we strap money. That like everything was completely, and then I was like, this is dumb. I'm not watching it anymore. So yeah, no, that's great.
I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So Tom, we'll go shooting soon.
Thank you.
Just let me know.
I'm up for it. I'm up for it. Thank you guys for having me very much.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
This has been great. That shooting, where'd that come from?
Oh, I guess we should do a backstory, right?
And
I just got whiplash from that pivot.
Very often, so it's fun to do, but I don't get out there often, so I need to do it.
Tom and I, I've got a history with firearms and defensive tactics, so we've just talked and messed around and shared stories about guns we like. So I told him we're definitely going to go shooting. I want to get with him and do a replica weapon and show him some things that we used to train in federal law enforcement. So we'll have a good time.
I'm the last guy on the planet, literally, that you would ever meet that wanted to be in the same building with a gun. That's no joke. And then I started thinking about, personal safety and family safety and the stuff you hear about in the news. And I thought, I'm not going to save our family with wasp spray, in their face, which is what I had on hand. It's like, okay, that would maybe work, but I can do better than that. And so I knew a guy that had grown up with guns. He said, well, I'll take you shooting. Oh, I don't want to go shooting. He said, no, come on, it'll be fun. I loved it. It was so fun. Nice. And I immediately went out and bought a gun, and then, went to the range a few times, but I don't get there often enough. Yeah. And I need to and want to. So Ron?
Yep. We're going to make it happen.
There's the backstory. I need those backstories.
Yeah, I know. And congratulations from moving from Hollywood to Mount Pleasant. It was a great move on your part.
Thank you.
And
I feel very grateful. And I kind of wish we had done this a few years earlier. It's wonderful living here, and no complaints. It's a perfect place to be retired and kind of whatever this is that I'm in, retirement, semi-retirement zone. It's great.
Excellent. Well, you've been an amazing guest. I was going to say interviewee, but you bring so much to the table, and so many people listening are leaders or aspiring leaders, and everything you talked about, even though it's in an industry that not a lot of folks are in, that listen to us currently, it can all be applied over into whatever industry they're in. So it's like just leadership lessons. So thank you for that.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.